As soon as the timer starts, I'm assuming we're recording at some point here. But sometimes the timer's slow. Okay, so first thing I want to point out as we talk about the projects that we have to complete this semester, this is the last one that we're going to talk about, and from this point you are smooth sailing on getting things done, but you have three. The CNA A, the OA, and the SEPA, Stakeholder Engagement Project. We're talking about that today. So the good news is that what you're doing for your CNA, part of that will inform your stakeholder engagement project. So as you get through working into an action plan from your CNA, that can be your stakeholder, that can be your action plan, is the stakeholder engagement piece. Okay, does that make sense? So your CNA is comprehensive. You're doing a needs assessment across the board, but part of that needs assessment is stakeholder engagement. How you're engaging stakeholders in the system, students, parents, community, all of that. Out of the CNA, you create an action plan based on one of your needs. Okay? So your need may be stakeholder engagement. So your action plan that you write could be focused on stakeholder engagement. And so your action plan that you write could be stakeholder engagement for both. You follow me? Does that make more sense now? Okay.
If it's not though, then we have to do it separate, right?
Yes. If it doesn't, if whoever you're doing this with gives you a different focus, then yes. But it's that whole work harder, not smarter, if that works out. The other piece that I wanted to share with you is the next page down. If you notice, we've already aligned the standards with the project, the teacher leader standards. So as you're going in and you're trying to figure out, because part of what you have to do is connect the teacher leader standards to each of these projects. So as you're going through, don't forget that this chart is here. We've done the alignment. You just need to go note which ones you're supposed to align to. And of course, there may be others, but this
say 3A, 2B.
based
On
on.
our minutes when we put the thing.
Yes, on your minutes when you put the thing. If you're talking about it in your narrative, you might want to refer to it in shorthand in some case. Yeah, because we don't have them memorized either. So as we're grading it and looking over it, it will be very beneficial if you give us some. You know, if 3A is facilitation of professional development, just put that. Don't put the whole thing. Just put enough so that we know what it is.
We don't have to in-text cite that though, right? Just discuss it.
Just discuss it, yeah. And if you're discussing it, the other thing you can do is and this is what you mean, in parentheses, go ahead and put that it's 1A. So when I'm going through the checklist of what you've done, I can just check, 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 check. It's kind of like writing national boards. Remember when you did that and you wanted to make it explicitly clear that you were meeting the standards? That's how I think of how I would construct this, because you don't want me to miss anything. You may interpret it as one thing and I may not catch it. So you want to make sure that I'm going to see it, or whoever. That would be my recommendation for you throughout the program. Okay, so that's all of 701. But this is here for all of them, so as you go throughout your program, I wanted to make sure that you were aware that that was there, or remembered that from our first night of class, because that was a while ago. Okay, so let's get down to stakeholder engagement project. All right, so analysis of current level stakeholder engagement, which is the CNA component, recommendations for improvement, and an action plan to facilitate that improvement in this class. You will continue to work on it next semester and implement it next semester, okay? So right now you're just writing it. Next semester you'll implement this at the site where you're working. You with me so far? Okay. You will evaluate the implementation and make recommendations for district and state implementation, and then submit a summary report of all of it in the summer. Okay? So this is a 3-class project. So you're just writing it now. So again, you are collaborating. Remember, as Sabrina and Daniel pointed out last night, all of your standards are facilitate, 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 which is why in your evidences as you collaborate, so that you can get practice in that facilitation. So you're going to address gaps in stakeholder engagement based on that CNA, and we just talked about the rest of the steps. So here's what A looks like. Using the information from the site level CNA, you will analyze stakeholder engagement and determine areas for improvement. Okay? Then you will lead a group of stakeholders to develop an action plan to address one or more of those areas. So what does that mean, one or more of those areas? Somebody tell me what you're going to do with your action plan.
Could we possibly like take our PLC and have a festival or parent night or something?
Yes, but if you're doing that, you need to involve the stakeholder where their gaps are too. So you need to get some parents involved in that group.
Our PTO
Our
board.
PTA.
Yeah, somebody, yes, a representative from that stakeholder group, at least one, needs to be involved in planning for you, okay? Now, how many activities or how many needs are you planning to address in this action plan, or should you address in this action plan? Yeah, it says one or more, okay? So remember, JP, you only have to focus on one. You don't have to, you're going to uncover more than one rock again and throughout this process. Don't try to tackle them all at once. Prioritize, okay? There's no way. If you're going into a leadership position, you're going to find a lot of rocks no matter where you go. You can't take them all at once. So my advice to you would be to pick one that is achievable, first of all, in the timeline that you have. Okay, don't pick something you can't do in a semester. And pick something that will have a direct impact on student learning. However you can relate it to a direct impact on student learning. And if parent involvement is your issue, that is directly related to student learning. I mean, you can, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm starting this project with Charlotte Country Day
Mm-hmm.
with the students. All the students are starting a project.
Right.
And our plan is to create this art piece as a result of them taking on the topic of communities at war.
Nice.
And my plan is for it, well, we're going to be working on it for the next few months, and it's going to culminate in the spring semester. And I'm planning to have a like a gallery, whatever, something presentation.
Right.
So could that fall up underneath that with, because I want to bring the parents in to show what the kids did.
Right.
We're bringing
And to get buy-in and support. Mm-hmm.
buy-in support.
Yeah. It very much depends on what your needs assessment says, what the data shows you, but
Our data already shows that we need parent involvement.
Right.
We need more.
I mean, you're in high
community.
school. Right. I mean, it's there. So absolutely, that could work. Just remember that as you're planning this, you're leading a committee and it's not just you planning it.
I know.
And you need,
Myself and another teacher, two other teachers, well, two art teachers, a
nice.
history teacher, and one of our site administrators.
Okay, and you may want to get a parent involved. That will meet the needs of this assignment. Okay?
No extra work.
That's what, I mean, that's seriously what I'm trying to communicate to you is try to do as much as possible. And for some of you, it's harder than others. As much as possible, use this to support the work that you already need to be doing or are doing. Okay? Don't create more work for yourself if you don't have to. Bev, what were you going to ask?
What if you're seeing that the need is just like just from the state makes us send out survey reports to parents at particular grades and
Mm-hmm.
assess their perception of the school, and then the teachers assess their perception of the school, and then the students in different grades assess their perception of the school.
Which is awesome data.
And well, what I'm seeing is that the teachers don't notice, like, it's that one of the areas is home to school
Mm-hmm.
support
Yes.
connection.
Yes.
the teachers don't see a problem. No, I'm sorry, this was the only one where the parents and the teachers both saw it as a problem, but only in the 90% level. Like, as opposed to everything else being 100%, 100%, and all of a sudden the teachers drop down to 90% in their perception. And then the parents do 90%, 95%, 89%, you know, in that level.
Mhm.
So how do you, I mean,
Well, that's still
how
an
do you work on
issue.
a perception?
That's what your team has to figure out. That's why you pull together representatives from each of those groups and you sit down and say, okay, this is what the data says. So how are we going to fix this? We have this problem, but you're leading that team to solve the problem. And that's what your action plan is. Does that make sense? And perception is usually one of the biggest issues. And that's huge. Your teachers perceive what's going on one way, students perceive it another, parents perceive it another.
Well, from what I just get in discussion with people, it's the parents, the teachers don't think that the parents are doing enough, and the parents don't think that the teachers are doing enough. And
Yeah, I think that's common. Right, I think that's common. So what has to happen to help change that perception?
I want to know more, Deb. You know, I want to know some examples. Give me an example.
So-
Maybe like a town meeting type thing, just to.
Or a more open-ended survey where you could collect some qualitative data? Like ask them why they think that to get those answers. And then your group would analyze that data, which would roll into your action plan for this. You would sit down and look at what people are saying about why they feel that way and then see what you can do. But normally, guys, what does it take to change perception? Just in general.
Getting a new group of receivers.
No, not a new group of receivers. But
Communication.
do what?
Communication.
Communication. That's usually what the problem is. There's some level of communication that is people are not feeling like they're receiving from both ends. So that may be where you have to look at your focus. But that'll come out of your whys, because that'll show up. You'll figure it out if you ask them why. Other questions at this point? I know Elizabeth's processing back there. I can see it.
It talks about the level of stakeholder engagement. If our data is showing us, what we know is showing us that it's not the level, it's the actual type of
Mhm.
stakeholder engagement. Can we address changing the type of the level?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, make this fit your situation. And we design these. I know it's frustrating for you guys because these are very general. We design them because of that very fact. You need to be able to make it fit your work environment and your situation. And as we know, not everybody in here is in a K-12 school in one site. So everybody has a different situation. That's why there's not more specific guidelines. I mean, we spent a long time working on these because we wanted to make sure that they were crafted well enough to give you some guidance, but also to let you be able to make it fit what you needed it to. Okay? All right. So now, this process includes prioritizing needs. So you'll look at the data and prioritize your needs. Setting short-term and long-term goals. And guys, if you think about it, these become the pieces of your action plan. So you're going to prioritize your needs, take your first need, your biggest need, set short-term and long-term goals, determine action steps to meet those goals, assign responsible parties to complete action steps, determine both human and fiscal resources necessary to meet the goals, determine a method of evaluating the goals, and setting a timeline for completion of the action plan. So there you go. That tells you exactly, if you do that, you have an action plan. And that meets the action plan for the comprehensive needs assessment. Make sense? Okay. Because I know you've been asking me, what does the action plan look like? Those are the pieces. All right. And then you go down to the checklist, and this is exactly what's going on in the checklist. Is what we just said. don't forget that the strategies that you enact, you need to tie back to research in some way. It can be done. Trust me. It's out there. Let your group help you. But it's
When
a
you say tie back to our research?
research strategy, research-based strategies. Whatever your issue is, if your issue is communication, then you go to the research and say, what does the research say about the best way to communicate? Okay, so you're going to do that, and that summary sheet explaining how what you do meets the teacher leader standards. Questions about this one? See, this one's not nearly as overwhelming as the rest of them, is it? But it's the first one. I mean, it's a piece of the first one you're already doing.
Potentially.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that one of the rocks you're going to find at some point is stakeholder engagement. I mean, that's
That's huge.
it's huge for you, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just agreeing with her. I don't know what this is all about. I'm just saying, in my school.
I'm just saying, yeah.
Hey.
But it's huge. It's huge. I hear it like every day from parents and from teachers. Like, you know, when we should be moving in the same direction.
And usually it boils down to communication. We all want the same things for our kids. I mean, I can remember many IEP meetings where parents were sitting there fighting me on not wanting to do things for their kids, like move them into a different setting because they weren't appropriately placed. And they were just so afraid of the stigma. And you have to say to them, look, I'm not here to harm your child. We are both here to get the best education possible for your child. And it has to come across that bluntly sometimes to say, I know you want what's best for your kid, and so do I, and so let's figure this out. So it's usually the message that's getting muddled. All right. Could I have ended on that today and you wouldn't have felt the need? Elizabeth's like, no. No. It'll get there. All right.